What's going on, y'all? It's Waiver Wire Queen. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the top 20 rookies in fantasy football based on their landing spot. So, if you are interested in determining which rookie players you should be targeting in your Fantasy Football Dynasty League draft, these are the top 20 rookies, and they will help you dominate your league. Let's get right into it.
Welcome to the Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast with Waiver Wire Queen.
All right, y'all. So let's talk about the top 20 rookies in fantasy football. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football and you are trying to stay ahead of your competition for the upcoming fantasy football season. We have all of the content that's going to help you prepare for all of your drafts in all formats. So that is Dynasty, Keeper, Best Ball, DFS, and the infamous redraft. Let's get right into it, guys. So most of you may have already started having some of your dynasty drafts. And if you're a fan of fantasy football like me and you're addicted to playing fantasy football, you probably have so many drafts that you still have several to go. But we're going to talk about the players who you should be focusing on the first two rounds based on their landing spots. Some of these players' draft stock has slightly gone down, and these are players who you may have considered drafting in those later rounds to help build your roster or to take a chance and put them in the taxi squad, but their landing spots are unfavorable. For instance, Jerome Ford was a late sleeper for me, and when I say late, I'm looking at 4th, 5th round, and his landing spot was atrocious. Being drafted as a running back to the Cleveland Browns is crazy as hell because they already have Chubb, Hunt, and Johnson. So it's like, what is he going to do? So you stay away from him because that is an unfavorable landing spot. But there are some players that simply got drafted to some great situations, and we're going to talk about it. So let's get ready to do this, guys. So today we're going to do the top 20 players and we're going to talk about their landing spots. So let's get ready to do this. So coming in at number 1, I don't care where this young man was drafted. He was the best overall player in fantasy football, and that is, are we surprised? Breece Hall, just the best player overall. So Breece Hall was drafted by the New York Jets. Was anyone surprised there? I don't think so, because we knew that the Jets needed a running back because Michael Carter and Ty Johnson, although they were okay last year, they statistically underwhelmed. They weren't that great, and they decided, hey, we're going to get a running back who is better than both of these guys, and he is capable of being out every down back. So most Jet fans I've talked to are being a little bit delusional because they are under the impression that Breece Hall and Michael Carter will split carries. They complement each other. No, they do not complement each other. And at some point, if not early on in the season, by the end of the season, Breece Hall will be the full-time RB1, no splitting carries, none of this 50-50, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be Breece Hall all the way, all day, every day. And anyone who drafted Breece Hall at 101 in their fantasy draft should be happy. Okay, yeah, Michael Carter, again, had a solid season, but it just wasn't great enough for you to start him and say, hey, he's going to be my RB1, he's going to be my RB2, maybe flex appeal, but not confident that, hey, this guy's going to be my full-time starter. So the Jets made the right decision. And if you have him as your number 1 player, well, number 1 rookie in the fantasy, it was a smart move. They drafted him in the 2nd round with pick 36, which was very good because he has the draft capital and that is why he was still the first player in most drafts off the board. If someone else was drafted ahead of him, any running back drafted ahead of him, that was pretty much crazy as hell. But in most of my drafts, Breece Hall was number one. I did have a draft where Treylon Burks was drafted ahead of Breece Hall. And again, I will stress to you guys, be careful on how you approach your drafts. Don't draft in one league based on how everything is going on and situated in another league, because you will lose all of the time. But nonetheless, Breece Hall is our number one guy on the board. He has some very good weapons around him. We're expecting Zach Wilson to take the next step. They have some really good young wide receivers. They drafted Wilson as well. And they also drafted Moore last season, who was playing very well until injuries. So we're expecting Moore to take the next step at the wide receiver position this year. We're expecting Zach Wilson, to take the next step as a young quarterback, because he has all of the weapons, and the Jets offensive line is solid. So this is a favorable landing spot for Breece Hall. And if you were doubting whether he should be the first guy off the board in all rookie drafts, don't doubt it. He is the guy. It's favorable. Again, people doubt it because they have Carter and they have Ty Johnson. Ty Johnson, when he had the opportunity to be a lead back with the Lions, he didn't perform well. When he had the opportunity to somewhat be the lead back with the Jets, no, he played solid in his role as that third down guy. However, if you have someone like Breece Hall on the board and he's an every down back, you pick him up, right? In your draft, you draft him. So don't be alarmed. Go on and do it. Just do it, y'all. Coming in at number 2, we have Drake London. That's right. Drake London was drafted in the first round with pick 8 by the Atlanta Falcons. He was the number 1 wide receiver off the board. First wide receiver off the board. When we talk about the first 3 wide receivers off the board, everyone has a different ranking. For me, it's Drake London. I know after the first night in the NFL draft, most people were concerned because he was drafted by the Falcons. And obviously, we know with the Falcons, they have an unfavorable quarterback. Obviously, we know with the Falcons, they have Marcus Mariota at the quarterback position, and most people have flashbacks of the whole Corey Davis, Mariota tandem. And we know that didn't work for several reasons, and both of them may have played a role in why that did not work. However, what kind of made me have more confidence in drafting Drake London is the fact that they added Desmond Ridder in the 3rd round at the quarterback position. And also, you figure they have Kyle Pitts. Ridley is suspended at least for the entire 2022 season, so we're not going to see him. So obviously Drake London would slide in there as the number 1 wide receiver for the Falcons, at least this year. He has the talent. He's 6'4". He's very good. His comparison is to Mike Evans. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, Mike Evans. That is a very good comparison. What we know about Mike Evans is he's consistent. He has consistently produced at least 1,000 yards every season. So why wouldn't you want a wide receiver who is going to consistently produce 1,000 yards every year and have an impact, a positive impact on your team? So if you were considering Drake London, you should draft him. If you had doubts because of the whole Mariota situation, don't doubt him. I know with Corey Davis, his best season was a little over 800, maybe 900 yards with Mariota, which isn't bad. But I do feel like at some point Desmond Ridder is going to slide in there, and that's going to be better for Drake London. But again, to me, he's the best wide receiver, and that is why you should pick him in your draft. Don't doubt it, guys. Go on and do it. Coming in at number 3, we have Garrett Wilson, the young, talented wide receiver who was drafted by the New York Jets in round 1, pick 10. I mean, the first round of the NFL draft was crazy. So many wide receivers came off the board. We all knew that this class is deep at the wide receiver position. And it was, okay. I don't know about you guys, but it was. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. And then if you had any of your drafts the last 2 weekends, you were like, oh, yeah, I can get a really good wide receiver late second, early third, and some deep sleepers late. I know most people in dynasty leagues were looking to draft whatever wide receiver was drafted. There are a few that I would stay away from late, but nonetheless, this was a good situation for him. You have the young Zach Wilson. You have Moore opposite him. Not high on Corey Davis, but again, he's still there as well. Barrios is there. And then you have Breece Hall, a solid offensive line. The Jets are expected to take it to the next level. So they're going to take another step in the right direction of a much better overall football team. And so that's going to be favorable for Garrett Wilson, because again, everyone is projecting that Zach Wilson will take a few steps in the right direction of being a complete young quarterback in the NFL. And again, when you have the weapons around you, now it's on you. So with Zach Wilson, now the Jets have put it back on him. Like, hey, we've surrounded you with some very good, solid weapons at the tight end position, wide receivers, offensive line, and running back position. So now it's going to be on you. So if Zach Wilson is who the Jets think he is, then Garrett Wilson will benefit, and all of the Jets skilled players at wide receiver, tight end, and running back should benefit from Zach Wilson taking several steps to become the Jets franchise quarterback. Coming in at number 3, one of my favorites is Chris Olave. Yes, drafted by the Saints. Now, when I posted my rankings online, I had a few people say, I don't trust those rankings because Chris Olave was in the top 5 or in the top 10. And I was thinking like, hey, if you don't believe that Chris Olave is a top 5 or top 10 rookie out of this draft class, then you need to retire from fantasy football, because he simply is. And again, his destination was favorable. I know a lot of people look at the whole Winston situation, but again, with Mike Evans, he had very productive seasons with Winston. Now, we don't care if Winston throws 40 interceptions, but we do care as long as he's getting the ball to Olave at times, and he will. Olave is going to take the top off a whole lot. He's going to be that young wide receiver that you look at and you're playing against him and you're like, is this going to be the time that he's going to get 15 to 18 fantasy points on one play? It can happen a lot because you figure they have Michael Thomas hopefully coming back at full strength. And then you have hopefully Kamara coming back and doing what he does. He has some legal issues, but I don't anticipate that's going to keep him out the whole entire season. And again, if Winston is able to do whatever he did statistically as far as getting the ball to Olave and Michael Thomas, like he did when he was throwing the ball to Mike Evans, then I am fine with this destination. This is a great destination for him because if nothing else, if they decide to move on from Thomas, you have your young wide receiver to move forward with in Chris Olave. And again, if they do keep Michael Thomas, who else at wide receiver is going to challenge this young man? Instantly, he is, if not second best wide receiver. I don't want to say he's going to be over Michael Thomas because I do want to see what Michael Thomas does once he returns. But again, there's no other wide receiver on the Saints who's going to be a threat to this young man coming out here starting day one and being a very good player long term for the Saints. So he is my number 4 guy on this list. Honestly, if London wasn't on the board when I drafted in my one league, then it was going to be between Wilson and Olave. Just my opinion. I like fast wide receivers who will take the top off quickly. Those guys are difference makers. And now I don't mean the one once in a blue moon. He has the potential to put some fear into your opponent's heart every week. And that is what we look for. And then again, he has the talent there. He has the draft capital, first round, pick 11. The Saints didn't pick him at 11 to pretty much say that, oh, he's not going to be our guy. He's horrible. No, they picked him at pick 11 in the first round because he has all of the tools to be a very dominant young wide receiver. And you're going to start seeing more of this, more of these young, talented, dynamic wide receivers going in the first round. Next draft class, you'll see the same. Let's go on to number 5. I have Kenneth Walker at number 5, drafted by the Seattle Seahawks. I have Walker here at number 5, one, because he has the draft capital. Second round, pick 41. Okay, that is a very good location for him to be drafted in the second round. And you also have to realize, I know there are some concerns with the fact that they have Chris Carson, they have Rashad Penny. Offensive line is not the greatest. Then you have Drew Lock. Woo! It's some unfavorable mess going on. But if you are in a dynasty league, you are not thinking one season. You are thinking long-term. This is my long-term solution at the running back position. This is my guy going forward. If you're in redraft, you may have some concerns because of all of the quote-unquote unfavorable situations and play up with other players on that roster. But again, for dynasty purposes, guess what? Carson is a free agent at the end of the season, and Penny is not under contract as well. And we also have to understand the fact that in this draft, Seattle did add more offensive linemen than I've ever seen him do in the Russell Wilson era. So hopefully those guys pan out. And that means, to me, they are committed to building that offensive line. I don't want to say rebuild because I don't feel like that offensive line has ever been great throughout the Russell Wilson era. But if you are now adding offensive linemen, it tells me that they are trying to address that offensive lineman that was one of the worst in the NFL. Again, Carson has I'll say this, Carson and Penny have dealt with several injuries throughout their NFL career. They both have a lot of talent, but unable to stay on the field. Health is wealth. Availability is one of the most important things in fantasy. You can average 20 points, but if you are always on IR, then do you really have value? You don't have any value if you are always injured. It doesn't help my team. Ask those people who keep consistently drafting CMC in the first round in the top 2 picks. Ask them, hey, how did your team do this past season with CMC as your first player off the board in the first round? They'll tell you, we lost. So again, it doesn't matter how great a player is. If they're unavailable, they have no value. Again, with Chris Carson, he's dealing with a whole neck issue. That is a very dangerous situation. Missed most of the season last year with the neck issue, the neck injury, and he ultimately had surgery. So that is big. Neck surgery, huge. Penny played very well down the stretch, but again, with Penny unable to remain healthy. This is one of the reasons why they drafted Kenny. This is one of the main reasons why they drafted Kenneth Walker, because the guys they have are unable to remain healthy. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Walker and Penny in 2023 going forward, opposed to I wouldn't be surprised if you see Walker and Penny in 2023 as the two backs. And I know people say, well, Kenneth Walker, he's not going to be a good PPR back. But again, he hadn't had a lot of opportunities in college to show if he can be that third down guy, the running back who is going to catch the ball out of the backfield. So got to give him a chance. Let's be clear. Chris Carson wasn't that guy. And then slowly but surely, he actually became a better back a better pass catching back. So I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to just say, hey, he's unable to catch the ball. I'm going to give him a chance to show me that, hey, I'm at this level. I have more opportunity to catch the ball. I'm going to work on it and show you guys that I can. I really like Kenneth Walker here. Situation is much better than what most people think because, again, two backs unable to remain healthy. Neither one of these backs are under contract at the end of the 2022-23 season. So that's favorable for Kenneth Walker. And they're going to run the hell out of the ball because Drew Lock ain't going to be throwing the ball a lot. I hope not. Okay. Not if they want to win at least 1 or 2 games. But, you know, they believe in Drew Lock. I don't know what it is they believe in because from what we've watched with Denver, it hasn't been great. But, you know, we'll see. He gets a second chance with a new organization. We'll see how that goes. Again, I do anticipate them running the football a whole lot. So if they have all 3 of these guys healthy this season, they'll run the ball with all 3 of them. Again, question marks around Chris Carson. So that is going to be favorable for Kenneth Walker. And if nothing else, Pete Carroll loves to run the ball. So if you had any concerns, don't be concerned. And if you are looking for a running back and Breece Hall is not available, then the next best thing will be Kenneth Walker in your dynasty league. So don't pass over him if you have the opportunity to draft him because you need a running back. Let's move on to number 6, Treylon Burks. Obviously, the combine kind of hurt his stock. Early on, he was the number 1 wide receiver. Combine wasn't great from him. However, he's still a very good young wide receiver. The Titans traded their guy, A.J. Brown, to the Eagles, and ultimately they drafted Treylon Burks. Okay, all fine and dandy. The only thing I will say here is that this is solely talent, and it's a good landing spot. However, the Titans are a run-first team, and they will continue to be a run-first team. How Derrick Henry goes, the Titans go. Although A.J. Brown was able to be successful, I do anticipate Burks being successful. We just need to make sure that Ryan Tannehill is going to be able to get him the ball. There may be some growing pains here early on, but he's still very talented, good route runner, not the fastest, but he's going to be that guy who's still going to move the chains. That is important. They're going to be relying on him, especially on third down. They have Woods there, who to start the season may not even play early on because he's still recovering from a knee injury. So you have to consider that as well. So it's definitely going to be the Treylon Burks show at the wide receiver position. I again stress there may be some growing pains early on, or he may just come out and just be very, very good. But nonetheless, the only thing here is to understand that the Titans are still a run-first team. But when you don't have the other wide receivers available, he's going to see a lot of targets, or all of the targets that they have, because who else going to be out there? Again, Woods may not be there to start the season. But this was a good move because they also drafted Malik Willis. So maybe at some point it will be the Malik Willis and Treylon Burks show. We'll have to see. I'm interested in seeing that. Coming in at number 7, Jameson Williams with the Detroit Lions. They drafted him in round 1 at pick 12. This was a good pick. So as you can see, my top 5 wide receivers, I got London, Wilson, Olave, Burks, and Williams. These are my top 5 guys. I've consistently had them as the top 5. I may have moved them around a bit based on combine results and landing spots. This is a solid situation for Williams. I do feel like, at some point they will draft a quarterback, because I don't feel like Jared Goff is the long-term answer at the wide receiver position. But nonetheless, this is still a favorable destination because they just need talent. Okay, they need talent at the wide receiver position because some of these guys just haven't lived up to the hype. Okay, and this young man is going to come in and, to me, live up to the hype. I know he's recovering from an ACL injury. Those are dangerous. However, they said he was running already. He was running and showing that he's gonna be back, maybe even early. And this was prior to the NFL draft. He's fast as hell, and he's a good route runner. We don't bet against Alabama wide receivers because if nothing else, they can run really good routes. And again, he's fast as hell. But ultimately, it's going to be him and Armon Ross, St. Brown, and TJ Hawkinson that Jared Goff is going to be trying to throw the ball to. At some point, the quarterback position will have to be addressed, and they most likely will do that in the 2023 draft. So there won't be any reason why Williams won't be the starting wide receiver opposite St. Brown in 2022. Just the only thing you'll have to consider is at what point, because that knee injury is obviously new. It happened this year. So that is the only concern that you should have. And that is one of the reasons why he's not higher on this list, because of the knee injury and some uncertainty as to when he's going to play. But should you draft him with confidence? Yes. In a dynasty league, long-term, it's going to be very, very good. So you should not have any issues drafting him. Just go on and do it, guys. Coming in at number 8, we have Kenny Pickett, quarterback with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They drafted him in the first round at pick 20. He was the only quarterback taken in the first round. In fact, no other quarterback was drafted until the third round. My board pre-draft, I had Malik Willis as the number 1 quarterback, and then I had Kenny Pickett. Well, we all know how the draft ended, and this is why he's here. Now, for me in a dynasty league, if it's a super flex, I would draft him in the first round, but later in the first round, unless he's just your guy and that's how you feel. But I would not draft him in the first 5 rounds. In a one quarterback dynasty league, I'm not drafting any quarterbacks in the first round because that's just how I feel. You should have solid quarterbacks in your dynasty league and not have to reach in a 1 quarterback league. In a super flex league, I would take a chance on him later in the first round or early second. So pick 8 is not a bad spot for him. Or if it was out of the top 5. In the top 5, there's some just talent, especially at the wide receiver position, which you cannot pass up. And that's why he's here at 8. Again, be strategic and kind of be smart about where you draft some of these players, because you don't want to reach for players, okay? The reason why I have him here and I have him ahead of all of the other quarterbacks now, because you re-rank after the draft. 1, draft capital in his destination. The Pittsburgh Steelers are a stable organization. They pretty much, the stability there is amazing. It's perfect for a young quarterback because you know it's not going to be crazy. We're not going to be switching offensive coaches every time you turn around. They have stability at the head coaching position, and they have talent. They have Najee Harris. Okay, they are trying to get that offensive line back up to par. I expect them to do so. They also have some really good wide receivers, and you have a solid young tight end. So you have the right pieces around to be successful. So if Kenny Pickett ends up being a bust, it'll be because he's just not that guy, because the talent and stability is there. Johnson, okay, Claypool. They drafted George Pickens. There's no reason why, based on draft capital, why Kenny Pickett cannot come in there and start day one and pretty much let Mitchell Trubisky know that, hey, it's my job. You don't draft quarterbacks in the first round for them to sit for a long time. Normally, you'll see the quarterbacks early in the first round, but based on where he was drafted, sometimes you do see quarterbacks sit a few games and then they get in there. But if he's who they say he is, then he may very well come and be the day one starter because he just outperforms Mitchell. And there's nothing wrong with that. Again, the way things went in this draft, I want all of these quarterbacks to succeed. Everyone said this quarterback class is terrible. These quarterbacks, they were looking to 2023 before the draft with these quarterbacks. So I'm hoping that they all end up, proven everyone wrong. A lot of times you don't, because talent is talent. But again, destination, these landing spots help. I feel like Kenny Pickett has a better chance at succeeding with the Steelers if he was drafted somewhere else that just didn't have the stability of the weapons. Then the probability of him being successful will be a little bit lower, and that team would be already looking past him up to 2023. But the fact that it's with a stable franchise and the weapons they have, he should be successful. And if he's not, it's going to be him. Which brings me to number 9. I have George Pickens. George Pickens was drafted by the Steelers in round 2 at pick 52. So I know people are saying, well, they have Johnson, they have Claypool. Johnson may not be on that team in the near future. If nothing else in this NFL draft, you know that these franchises are unwilling to pay some of these wide receivers the money that they want. There are obviously some, but you see these the franchises that are willing to pay them are the franchises that are trading for them. So the teams that they are necessarily drafted by, or they're pretty much their current team, they're unwilling to pay these guys the money. That's what I learned. So Johnson may end up being a wide receiver that, falls victim to that. And also, we trust when the Steelers draft wide receivers. Okay, we just simply trust it. Pickens may have been higher up in the wide receiver rankings had he not gotten hurt. But again, injuries are part of the game, and it factors in to a certain extent when we are doing our rankings, because again, we don't have a lot to go off or based on this past season, but nonetheless, the talent is there, and he's somebody who should be going in the first round, later in the first round, after those 5 wide receivers who were drafted. And again, you'll see a difference of opinion with the rankings with some of these guys, but this is a long-term favorable situation for him, and the talent is there. He'll get to come in and learn and grow with Pickett. And then again, there's some other really good wide receivers. This is the player that a team like my Giants could have looked at drafting, or even the Patriots. But nonetheless, this was a great move. The draft capital is there, and the stability and what we know about Steeler wide receivers should tell you all that this is going to be a very good pick, and it's going to pay off later on. Some point this year, maybe even next year, depending on what happens with Johnson. And then we have at number 10, I have Christian Watson with the Green Bay Packers. Okay, they drafted him in the second round at pick 34. He has the draft capital. With Watson, let's be clear. Who the hell else is Aaron Rodgers throwing the football to? I'm telling you, at some point in the season, Aaron Rodgers is going to act a whole fool because he don't have anyone to throw the ball to. Okay, you don't let the top target go. You don't. But again, the trend was, we're not paying these wide receivers all this money. I do like what the Chiefs did, and we'll talk about that later on. I like what they did with the Tyreek Hill situation. But for Aaron Rodgers, we know how he gets. So who they throwing the ball to? Are you really saying that Randall Cobb, Sammy Watkins, and Alan Lazard are his guys going forward after you were throwing the football to Adams all of these years? Come on now. All right. This young man definitely has the opportunity and may very well be a day one starter, because you simply cannot tell me you're confident in what these other guys are going to do. Let's be clear. It was Adams and then everybody else, and it was eeny, meeny, miny, mo. And most likely you left all of those other wide receivers and tight ends on waivers with the Packers. So don't tell me that all of a sudden Lazard's going to turn out to be, top 10, whatever. No, but this is a favorable destination for Watson. 6'4", fast as hell. He lit the combine up, and it's going to be a good fit for him. Okay, he's tall. He's going to be able to get up there and bring some of those passes from Rodgers down that he's gonna light it up. I'll tell you that. Coming in at number 11, we have Skyy Moore. The Chiefs drafted Skyy Moore in the second round with pick 54. Okay, one of the many reasons why I said that the Chiefs did a good job with the Tyreek Hill trade is because, one, they obviously couldn't pay him all the money because they invested all of the money into their quarterback, Mahomes. Okay. And then they got a lot of assets back in that trade to address the biggest issue, that defense. And they did a very, very good job because they were unable to keep up with the Bills, because I felt like the Bills, that offense is probably going to be better than the Chiefs offense this year. And then obviously, the defense was better last year and most likely will be better this year. But the Chiefs weren't unable to start the season off with that defense that they had. But they made some good moves defensive-wise, even though it cost them Tyreek Hill. But they still have players like Travis Kelce. That's my boy. They got Travis Kelce still, okay? They added Juju via free agency and MVS. Juju, I feel like, will be solid. But my biggest concern was, do they think that Hardman and MVS are really going to show them a whole lot more than what they showed them this past season? Hardman had the opportunity to be number 2 opposite of Hill, and he pretty much performed like he did the previous season, which, hey, you weren't even 2 and wasn't on the field as much. You're seeing more opportunity and it's still the same. I don't feel like long-term MVS and Hardman will be the answer, but I do believe in Skyy Moore. Okay. I do feel like he's going to end up being that guy. I feel like he's going to be better than Hardman and MVS. Now, MVS is there to take the top off. We all know back when you have those flashbacks when Rodgers and MVS, and we all know that when you have the flashbacks of Rodgers and MVS connecting, we know that it was those long bomb 40-yard touchdowns, which we appreciated those, but we didn't know when it was coming. So if you are thinking that something is going to change with MVS this season in fantasy, it's not, because it's still going to be some of that. It's going to be this game or that game. But we do know at some point Skyy Moore is going to be the guy, which is why I have him at 11, because you do realize long-term, the answer will be Moore, and the long-term answer won't be Juju or Miko or MVS. Okay. And then you also have to realize that Kelce is getting up there in age as well. So you have this young kid on his rookie contract, right? He's on his rookie contract. So you can add the other veteran wide receivers around him, like a Juju and an MVS, and it should work. But again, if I'm really trying to determine if the Chiefs offensive wise are going to be able to stick with the Bills and hang with them, I don't. But long term, it was a smart move, because guess what? Now your defense has been rebuilt, and you got a young, dynamic wide receiver. I honestly felt like they should have moved up in the draft and try to get someone like Williams, because you had the assets to do so, but they had their eyes on Moore, and that's what they did. So, they got to live with it. It's still a very good pick. Moore in most of my leagues are being drafted between pick like 9 and early second round. And my rebuild Superflex league, he went pick 204 in the second round. Not bad to get him in a 12-team Superflex league early in the second round. But again, in some leagues, I've watched him go as early as 6 or 7. So plan accordingly, be smart, and don't reach just because, hey, he's going to be catching passes from Mahomes, because there may be somebody like Williams on the board who I would prefer over him. My opinion. And also, when it comes to long-term, is it Watson or Moore? We know that the one thing long-term, what we know right now is that Mahomes will be here in 5 years, still hopefully as the talented, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, top 3, top 4, but we don't know when Rodgers is going to retire. If Aaron Rodgers was to say at the end of the season, or hell, at the start of this year, I'm retiring, are we confident that Jordan Love is going to be able to get the ball to Watson? I don't know. Didn't look great. But nonetheless, with Moore and Watson, it's been interchangeable for me. It's been, okay, well, I got Watson and then I got Moore. I think to start out, Watson has more of an opportunity to, perform immediately. Moore, I think, is going to be a little time where he has a little slight learning curve, and they have other wide receivers there capable of starting until the Chiefs feel that Moore is ready. Watson, to me, he better be in that starting lineup early. They not trying what they got out there in Green Bay. That is specifically why this is all about landing spots. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can stay connected and continue to do your research and stay ahead of your competition in fantasy football. Let's talk about number 12. We have James Cook with the Buffalo Bills. Surprise here. It's no surprise that the Bills drafted a running back. I just didn't think they were going to draft Cook. For a moment, I was like, ooh, they about to draft Breece Hall. Woo! Then they didn't. Then they draft Cook. This is a very good landing spot for James Cook at pick 63 in the second round. This was a very, very good pick. I'm sorry. Okay. I watched in a draft. James Cook went at pick 4 because running backs were going off the board. This individual needed a running back. You had Breece Hall go first, and then you had Walker go, and then you had Cook go. So yes, and then you had Cook go. So this is a very good pick because, one, you all know the Bills, they just have the best offense in the NFL, hands down. You are playing alongside top 2 at the quarterback position in Josh Allen. The offensive line is very good. They have Diggs there. Okay. You have Jamison Crowder. Okay. Gabriel Davis. Now let's talk about the running backs. You have Devin Singletary, who's been inconsistent, and Zach Moss, who's been a bust. I think James Cook will be the long-term solution at running back. He's definitely a running back who's going to be capable of being that third down back. You'll see him a lot on the field with Allen, and that is why his stock went up. Prior to the draft, you may have seen some rankings that had some other running backs ahead of him. I always had him in my top 5, but now he has this favorable landing spot and a very good offense, so you push him up a bit because the expectations are going to be high. He's expected to perform, and he should. Because, one, again, the offense that they have, that talented quarterback, Josh Allen, and then the fact that who is he competing with? Duke Johnson hasn't been great the last few years. Zach Moss hasn't lived up to the hype. And then Devin Singletary, again, has been inconsistent. So you have this very young, dynamic, fast running back who's got the draft capital. You know that, hey, he is expected to play and be a part of that offense. And I want stock in the Bills offense when you have Josh Allen. I want him. Diggs, I want him. Okay, I even think Crowder should have a solid season. And then you have some other players who should be good too. But when it comes to the running back position, this landing spot is favorable because the running backs that they have underwhelmed. And that is simply what it is. Let's talk about Dotson. Yes, Jahan Dotson with the Washington Commanders. They drafted him in the first round with pick 16, which was a bit high for me. But when you see that the other guys like Skyy Moore, Watson, and Pickens were drafted later, I still have them ahead because I feel like long-term those guys will be better. But this is a good landing spot for him. He gets to play with Terry. He gets to play with Wentz, who we're hoping that, he has a solid year. Pittman was able to still produce with Carson Wentz, and you got to realize the Colts were a pass first. Pittman was still able to produce with Carson Wentz, even though they had Jonathan Taylor and the Colts were a run first team. Jahan compliments Terry. They have Logan Thomas hopefully coming back healthy. They have Gibson. They have Curtis Samuel. He can compete with Curtis Samuel because Curtis Samuel had a horrible season this past year. So he should be able to come in and compete with him. If nothing else, if say Curtis Samuel was to win that job, he still can be their wide receiver 3. They also have McKissick, who to me they really didn't use much last year, which is why I don't know why he re-signed with them, but maybe they told him something else. We'll have to see. But this is a solid landing spot for him because the need for a wide receiver was there, considering that, one, you don't have a third option at the wide receiver position, and also the main reason is Curtis Samuel did not pan out. Well, has not panned out yet. We'll see what he does coming up this year. Let's talk about Rachaad White, drafted in the 3rd round with pick 91 by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I had Rachaad White as my running back 3. I had Rachaad White as my running back 3 in my top 5 running back rankings prior to the draft. That slightly changed because I don't necessarily feel like this was the best landing spot, even though it's still kind of solid. We know that the Buccaneers, the expectation is Super Bowl or bust, so maybe a little bit much for the young guy. You got the GOAT, so if the GOAT is saying you're not playing well, or you're gonna be on the end of that bench, okay? They also re-signed Leonard Fournette to a 3-year deal, which it's like, okay, well, they done re-signed Fournette. What's gonna happen? They still have Mike Evans. Then they re-signed Giovanni Bernard as well. They have some really good offensive weapons on that team, but this young man is going to have to really show that, he belongs out there over Leonard Fournette, who has an improved pass catching running back. And then also, does Tom Brady trust you on 3rd down as that guy? Those are the factors. I do believe he has the talent to pretty much, get in there and say, yep, I can do it, which is why he's still in my top 20 rankings because, again, the talent is there. He has some really good weapons around him, and you have the GOAT, Tom Brady, who's going to be getting him the ball. All he needs to do is go in there and do what he's supposed to do. And there's no reason why he shouldn't surpass anyone else to back up Leonard Fournette at the running back position. Let's talk about 15. I have Dameon Pierce, drafted in round 4 with pick 107 by the Houston Texans. That's right, y'all. I have Pierce here. Yes, Pierce, very good back. I didn't have him in my top 5. I honestly didn't have him in my top 7. At the running back position prior to the draft. This is solely based on landing spots. Let's be clear. Last year, the running back position for the Texans was horrible. You had Johnson, you had Burkhead. You had Phillip Lindsay. They had so many guys there, and they all just were terrible. They signed Marlon Mack. Marlon Mack is a very good running back. However, he's always injured. So I was not surprised they addressed the running back position. This is the reason why this young man is in my top 20 rankings, because this is a favorable landing spot. There's no reason why he shouldn't be able to compete with Rex Burkhead and Marlon Mack. Marlon Mack, to me, should be the starter, but in the event that Marlon Mack is injured, then Pierce should be able to compete and win the job over Rex Burkhead. Prior to the NFL draft and some of the unfavorable landing spots and favorable landing spots, Pierce would have been someone who most likely would have slid to the end of the second, early third round. Based on the NFL draft and post NFL draft, that is not the case. So if he's someone who's on your radar, you're going to have to prioritize him a bit earlier than what you would have pre NFL draft, because when you were doing your mocks, you were able to pick him up, say, in maybe the third round, most likely. But post NFL draft, based on landing spot and based on the landing spot of some other players, you're going to have to adjust and take him a bit early in that second round. If he's your guy and say you have the last pick in the first round and you're not picking again to the end of the second round, then you're most likely going to have to prioritize him with that last pick in the first round, because he won't be there if you don't have any picks early in the second round. He won't be there at the end of the second round. I just don't see it, considering when you look at the re-rankings of the running backs and you're doing based on landing spot, he's not going to be there. So don't sleep if you want him. If you want him, you're going to have to go and get him, and it may be a little bit higher than expected. But if he's your guy, then go on and pick up your guy, because don't expect him to be there at the end of the second or the beginning of the third round. That's unrealistic based on the NFL draft, his landing spot, and other running backs' landing spots. Let's talk about one of my favorite running backs pre-NFL draft, post-NFL draft. Still the same. One of my favorites, Zamir White, drafted by the Raiders in the fourth round at pick 122. Now, he's most likely not going to be drafted based on his draft capital, because the running back position just did a whole 360 post NFL draft because of everything that went on during that draft, with some players having an unfavorable landing spot. The best thing about Zamir White, he's fast. He's going to definitely be a very good option on third down. I feel like he's capable of being an every down back, although we haven't been able to see it because it was White and Cook. Much better than what a lot of people ranked prior to the draft. And he's going to show you this. The best thing about him, again, is the fact that the Raiders did not pick up the option for Josh Jacobs. So that is very important. If I'm someone who has Josh Jacobs, I'm definitely looking to get White in my fantasy draft, because there's going to be some uncertainty there. But what we do know is, if the Raiders do anything like what the Patriots do, based on, McDaniels being their coach, they're going to have like 18,000 running backs on the roster anyway. So who is White truly competing with? I do believe he can beat out Amir Abdullah. I do believe he can beat out Bolden. So you're really competing with Kenyon Drake. And Drake has gone to different teams and lost the starting job. So I do believe he should be able to compete and long-term surpass Kenyon Drake. Just my opinion. So again, if you have Jacobs, then you definitely should be prioritizing this young man, because what if they decide not to re-sign Jacobs? Now, do you honestly think they are going to trust that, hey, Kenyon Drake is going to be our starting back? No. So prioritize Zamir White. Coming in at number 17, Malik Willis. Yes, I have him on my list. This is a very favorable destination for Malik Willis. He was drafted in the third round at pick 86 by the Tennessee Titans. Now, I will tell you this. In a redraft league, I won't draft him. I'm not going to be touching most of these rookie quarterbacks unless they're starting. So the only rookie quarterback you may want to look at, and he's going to be somebody who may come off your bench in a redraft league, would be Kenny Pickett, because he has the opportunity to be the starter. However, Malik Willis is going to be the backup to start the season. And if Tannehill plays well, he's going to be the backup for the entire season. So this is strictly for Dynasty. his rankings are for dynasty. The potential is there for this young man. He has the tools, right? Yes, can make all the throws. He has the tools, but he still needs some work. And so this is a favorable situation for him because we all know that Tannehill stunk it up this past postseason. The Titans secured the number 1 seed in the AFC just to lose to Cincinnati at home. Tannehill threw 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, and 220 yards. That's not great, especially when Derrick Henry was still, trying to recover, in my opinion, from that foot injury. I don't even think Derrick Henry should have been out there. He just didn't look good at all. He didn't look like Derrick Henry. We do need to keep in mind that the Titans are a run-first team. So that is also something to factor in. But fantasy purposes in a dynasty league, we also look at Derrick Henry like we're sounding the alarm. He's starting to hit that age where we're like at the running back position, and in dynasty, it's stressful. Malik Willis has the opportunity maybe next year or the year after that to be the guy. If Tannehill stinks it up, Malik Willis will definitely get out there on the field, especially if the Titans don't end up being that playoff team they were the last few years. They still have Henry. We know that, who's going to be the guy who is going to lead them. And then Tannehill didn't play very well even during the season. And then they traded away A.J. Brown for Burks. So you have a young wide receiver, Austin Hooper there. So they still should be a playoff team. However, in the event that the Titans don't make the playoffs, or they're looking like, hey, this season is a lost year, we may see Malik Willis. And if he ends up being the guy that they feel he's going to be long term, and Tannehill going to be out the door at some point, which is why Malik Willis is still in my top 20 because the talent is there and the landing spot is favorable. We just got to give him some time. If we give him the time and we invest what we need to in him, it's going to pay off. It simply is. So I'm not going to write him off. I expect him to end up being a guy at some point, and it paid off. I'm watching Malik Willis go at the end of the first or mid-second round in a lot of the drafts that I'm in. I'm not touching him in the first round, and I may have mid-second, but some drafts he's going to the third round. If you can get him in the third round and take a chance on him, cool. But in your first 2 rounds, you are looking for guys who are going to be difference makers immediately and starters, and most of these guys have the potential to do so. So take a chance on Willis. He will be one of your young quarterbacks you can slot in the taxi squad and just watch him, work and grow, and then we'll start him. Coming in at number 18, we have David Bell, drafted in round 3, pick 99 by the Cleveland Browns. My thing with the Browns is I was wondering, who else is going to play the wide receiver position? I do feel like long-term David Bell will be a better wide receiver than Donovan Peoples-Jones. Just my opinion. They have Cooper. You have Watson. You still need some other guys. Now, his stock will take a hit if they do decide to bring back Landry and if they do decide to sign Will Fuller. But these 2 things haven't occurred. And based on the fact that Landry wants more money and the fact that they drafted Bell, they may just go with Peoples-Jones, Bell, Schwartz, and obviously Amari Cooper. That'll be fine. That means to me, Bell's going to get on the field and is going to produce. He's going to produce with Watson at some point. So he's somebody who I would draft. And again, he was a player I was looking at late in the second round, some maybe in the third, or again, late second round, but he's going early second round based on landing spot and how the NFL draft ended and how the NFL draft went. So if you're considering adding him, you definitely have to prioritize him a bit earlier than what you expected pre-NFL draft. Coming in at number 19, John Metchie. That's right, drafted by the Houston Texans. He has the draft capital, okay? They drafted him in the second round with pick 44. He should be on your radar, because who else is out there besides Cooks? Come on now. They got Brandon Cooks. He's getting a little bit older, and we all know that so far the last year or so he has been healthy for the most part, but he has had a point for a period of time in his NFL career where he was hurt and out a lot. Metchie is going to complement him. Mills needs weapons. They are surrounding him with weapons. They got a running back. They added another wide receiver. They added, they have their tight end. They added more tight ends, and they have their tight end in Brevin Jordan. So they are adding a lot of young pieces. And if, say, they don't feel like Mills is the guy after this season, they are in position to draft a quarterback in 2023. But this is a very good landing spot. This is a hell of a landing spot for Metchie. I've watched Metchie go in the third round. So he's a very good option in the third round, and you should prioritize him. I had the opportunity to draft him at the end of the second round in one of my drafts, but I had a more pressing need at the running back position. So I needed to address the running back, and I got a very good running back. Someone drafted him early with the first pick, actually, in the third round. So if you can get him at the end of the second or early third, that is perfect. Again, early third is fine. If you are expecting him to be there at the end of the third round and the fourth round, fifth round, it's not going to happen. So if he's your guy, then you should prioritize him as such. Coming in at number 20, we have Isaiah Spiller. He was drafted by the Chargers at round 4 at pick 123, which is a very good spot because they need somebody else to complement Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler is truly not an every down back. And I know people are like, well, he's producing as such. Well, his body isn't structured to be an every down back. So Isaiah Spiller complements him very, very well. So you're going to see at some point maybe some Spiller in there. Not saying he's going to take Isaiah. Not saying that he's going to take Eckler's job where it's not going to happen. Okay, we know that. But if you have Austin Eckler, you better go and get Isaiah Spiller, because in the event that he's injured or anything like that, Spiller may be somebody who's going to be thrown in there to play. And so if nothing else, that should be an indicator as to why you need to add him, because we know that last season, Austin Eckler, he dealt with a lot of injuries. Although he wasn't missing time, we always thought he was going to miss time, even though he played. So if you can prioritize Spiller, then do so. I watched somebody take Spiller in the first round over some very good wide receivers. I wasn't going to do that. But if it's your guy, it's your guy. And it may be crazy to some of us, hey, he drafted so-and-so here. If that's your guy, that's your guy. I just can't be mad at it if he's your guy. But I am more about talent and adding talent. Although Spiller was very talented at that point in the first round, there were some much better talent available. I believe Wilson was still available, and this was like pick 7 or 8. I was going to take Wilson. Simply, there was no other option, right? It was either Spiller or Wilson. I'm like, I'm going to take him. I ended up with Cooks later on, who I think long-term is going to be a better running back in fantasy than Spiller, but they'll both be good. So don't be concerned, guys, because both of these guys will be very, very good running backs. Okay, so that is my top 20 rookie players going into this upcoming fantasy football season. Again, guys, if you are doing your drafts right now, because Dynasty League is all year long, if you are in a Dynasty League and you're not drafting until August, I don't know what kind of league that's, a Dynasty redraft or redraft, I don't know what it is. But again, if you are doing your drafts right now, then consider some of these guys, but be realistic about their landing spot. So if it's your guy, you may have to go up a few picks higher, So for instance, if you wanted, say, Pierce, and you were constantly and consistently able to get him in a mock draft late in the second round or the third round, it's not going to happen. in your real draft. So you have to reevaluate where you need to pick him if he's your guy. And that's what a lot of these players, specifically at the running back position, because Cook landing spot is very favorable, which is why I watched somebody draft him in the first round at 104. I was thinking, like, I like Cook, but I just don't know if I like him enough at 104. But this was this guy's guy, and I don't think he had any picks in the second round, so he just went and got his guy. But for me, I'm all about talent. And you got to ask yourself, are you drafting based on talent or need? Differentiate and understand the difference between the two, and that is going to help you also in your approach to your draft. Make sure you leave some comments and let me know what you think about the top 20 players. Hit that subscribe button if you play fantasy football, because we're going to give you all of the tools to prepare and stay ahead of your competition for this upcoming fantasy football season. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast.